In California, businesses that handle certain amounts of hazardous materials are required to submit a hazardous material business plan, including hazardous material disclosure, a map, and an emergency plan. This is accomplished by businesses submitting to the California Environmental Reporting System, or CERS. But how is the information in CERS used by the local responding fire department? What is the significance of an accurate business plan submission and a thorough inspection? We will ask our HAZMAT team captains a series of questions to learn more about how our team pre-plans HAZMAT incidents.
My name is Berkeley Northrup. I've been a firefighter here with Huntington Beach Fire Department for 23 years. I was hazmat-wise. I was a firefighter medic on the hazmat team here for 10 years.
I've been here for 23 years. I'm currently a hazmat captain. I've been here as a captain on the hazmat team for about 4 years. Previously to this, I was a hazmat specialist, firefighter paramedic for about 6 years.
I'm a fire captain for the Hazardous Materials Response Team here in Huntington Beach, California, for the Huntington Beach Fire Department. I've been on this team for close to 10 years, and I've been with the Huntington Beach Fire Department for just over 21 years.
I originally started with all the oil wells here in Huntington Beach. There was thousands and thousands, and that's how we kind of got our foot in the door. Felt like that was a necessary to be a provider, a hazmat provider, and we've hung on to that.
We have 4 hazmat specialists on duty per day, and so we're realistically not typed. And so when we do make an emergency response, we have to have another team come in to complete our team in order for us to make entry. Now that we are moving towards being a typed team, we will have 8 hazmat specialists on duty at all times, and so we're able to make an entry as our team by itself.
So the hazmat team here in the city of Huntington and Huntington Beach Fire is 12, now 24 members assigned to a team at 2 different fire stations that respond to all hazardous materials incidents in the city. We do it jointly with some of our public works and some of our surrounding agencies. So we provide hazmat response, recovery, and mitigation for our own city and some of the surrounding cities as well. So we're a county regional response, one of 3 teams in the county of over 1 million people.
So what kind of calls? Anything. Industrial hazmat, spill, leak, fire, things in the gutter, a lot of unknown substances. We'll have white powder calls.
One of the ones as a hazardous material teams, are usually accidental releases from businesses. It could be mistakes that they make or accidents that happen in the yard. It also could be illegal businesses that have issues. Majority of the time, that's what we go on. Plan would be us taking a look at a business that we have in the city, finding the exact location, what kind of chemicals they have in the business, location as far as like where would we go if we went in there. We try to get feet on the ground, go inside the business to see what the operation looks like, where the storage is, and any sort of barriers that we may run into, and also trying to make contact with the business owners as well as anybody that would have the information we need. So if we do go on an incident in that location, we've already kind of built some sort of relationship to make the call run a little bit smoother.
Well, it's right in the name, right? The pre-incident plan is basically any plan that we as a team or collectively as a group of people can come up with to help them mitigate and navigate through a situation or a problem. So it's something that you would build before a response exists. So that can be doing pre-walkthroughs of buildings that can have things such as paperwork and notes and checklists to provide safety for crews and citizens in response. It can have a pre-staging of apparatus and other resources, right? And then it's using some of your other resources, which can be in the technological world, such as computer programs, apps.
Back to pre-incident planning, for me, the more information I have, the quicker I can get a incident action plan and get to the solution. Also, the more information I have it's better for the first engine companies, so they don't get too deep into these. When you get into some real toxic stuff like cyanide, plating shops, anodizing, there's some scary stuff.
For us, the SDSs are probably the most important because that's going to give us the most information that we need to be safe in our response, and also to figure out what other chemicals could have problems with. So a complete SDS is the most important for us. And the other thing is the site map. The site map is probably one of the most important things. The more accurate that is, the better I can give information to my guys before they make entry to try and solve that problem a little bit faster. All of our stuff is right there, and so when we go en route, all the computers come on and they start looking up information, and we have the ability to print everything out so that I have it, so that when I go and make contact with people, I'm already talking with some sort of knowledge of what we're dealing with.
Okay, so the CERS inventory, so that's very important to hazardous materials teams, in particular our team, right? And we do use the CERS app and programs quite a bit here on our team. So as a matter of fact, part of our response is one of our team members immediately opens the CERS program, if of course this is at a fixed facility and a business, right? So the fact that the CERS is a mandatory reporting system, and the fact that if you own a business in the state of California, it's mandatory to have this in the reporting system, benefits us greatly, because on the way to a call or an incident, one of our team members is identifying the hazards associated with that business using the CERS system, using the CERS program.
So as we're heading the call, the firefighters can get on the computer, Cameo, Wiser, the NIOSH pocket guide, and we can start looking, start just getting some general ideas on what's there and what we're dealing with.
So, like everyone, we use apps now, mostly for the ERG guide, the NIOSH guide, the Wiser guide, the Peak. We have apps that we use. We also have internet on our computer here on the hazmat rig, and we also have a bunch of written materials. And so we have to use three resources in order to verify the information before we do make any sort of entry or decisions. And so, and CERS is the big one. CERS is en route to every single call. I have my guys look up CERS and find out the business address, and they pull out as much information as possible before we get on scene so that we can have a good idea as far as what we're responding to. So the biggest problem with not having a complete CERS guide or not having information at all is we're walking in blind. A lot of times businesses either have way more chemicals on site than they've reported, or they're carrying stuff that no one knows. And usually if it's an illegal business, we're walking in completely blind. So we don't know what sort of safety equipment we need, what sort of monitors we need. We have to go in continually, and it puts us in danger because it's an unknown. And so the more complete a CERS guide is, helps us, or CERS helps us make a better response. But the biggest thing is if there's unknown chemicals is the scariest thing for us to respond to. So.
And at this point, it's important to touch on the accuracy of that information is extremely important and can actually have effect on both personnel and citizen safety based on the information that we've gathered or been given through the CERS program, right? So as we stated before, the California Environmental Reporting System turns into the California Emergency Response System when I use it. When my team uses it, it switches because we all use it the way we want. So it's extremely important. All of the categories. Some of the important categories, of course, is product, what it is that's on site, quantity of that product, right? So some of those things have very direct impacts on the PPE we wear, the threshold times that we're being exposed to some of the products within these businesses, right? The site maps is extremely important that the accuracy of these site maps is up to date and correct. The site maps can provide where the product is, what is upstream, upwind, It can provide staging of apparatus. It can provide exiting corridors and decon corridors from where that is so that we understand. It can give us closer, get us closer to products to mitigate problems and start recovery. And then the site map also can provide, as we stated before, decon, and then it can also give me an opportunity to know where the workers are in these buildings to provide, to give our best chance of success for survival when you have incidents within these structures. So if I know this is a warehouse, most likely, wherever it is on that map, most likely most of the employees will be in that area. So those are a couple areas that are extremely important to us. Knowing that before we go to that call is extremely important as well.
It's probably that Brea call. I remember we were dispatched. It was like 3 a.m. and it was cyanide. I mean, it was an anodizing, and it was like 50 vats of between 20 and 100 gallons. And in all honesty, I was driving out there and I wasn't sure if I'm getting paid enough to do this job right now. And
The scariest one that we've recently had was that butane honey oil lab that was here in the city. They did have an explosion, and so when we got there, we had reports of multiple chemicals on site, and as well as the building was on fire. We did try pulling a CERS en route, and we realized that it was not a legal business, and so we had to go in and do recon. High potential of more explosions on this one, so we had to make sure that we were very careful as far as our entry and had to go and do recon just to find out where all these chemicals were before we could go out actually and make this a stop to the event. So.
The scariest incident that I've been on was in Newport Beach. It was an individual that was disappointed at his landlord and his apartment complex and wrote some vulgar language across the walls in his apartment, filled multiple bottles and labeled them as anthrax, put bear traps inside of his house and covered them with hay and grass clippings, and then also had DOT and military experience. So the threat matrix on that call was extremely high. The potential for problems was extremely high. The nexism of actually being a terrorist piece of someone wanting to hurt someone else was very high. And so there was multiple pieces of, not only were we sampling things to just identify the risk to the public and ourselves, we were exposed to potential bombs, military ordinances, high level of training, very disappointed individual, so that was probably one of the hardest, scariest calls to navigate through, just to make sure that the team and myself was safe, and how can we make this complex apartments, how can we support the recovery efforts so this can be moved into again. So that for me was a very challenging call to navigate through, and it included ourselves, law enforcement, bomb teams, FBI teams, there was SWAT teams there, there was military presence there, so it was a very long 16-hour response.
Was it anthrax?
It was not anthrax, but we tested it for it. Yes.